Hey, Danny Matta here, founder of PT Biz, and today we are going to talk about the customer experience, and in particular, one part of the customer experience that can dramatically change whether you're getting referrals in your practice. I'm going to start by relating an experience that we recently had in the medical system with my son to customer experiences that we see in the clinics that we work with. So, quick backstory, my son had his appendix removed a couple days ago, and it was completely unexpected. We thought he just had, irritation to some food that he ate. He woke up in the morning and was throwing up, but wasn't feeling better. So we spent the next basically 24 hours in urgent care clinics, emergency rooms, and eventually surgical center, where he ended up having to have his appendix removed before it ruptured, and all good. He's doing just fine. But as I was going through the process, I was thinking through just how much better the customer experience could be in basically any healthcare setting that you go to. And I get it, it's complex, there's a lot of moving parts. But one of the things that is, I think, most frustrating to people, and if you can be aware of this in your own clinic, this is going to be huge because it's free, and that thing is communication. Communication is people understanding, really, there's three elements to it that I think that most people could improve and that need to be addressed as far as your customer experience is concerned. And let's take a step back for a second and let's talk about there's two elements of whether somebody's going to refer somebody your way in your practice for the most part. It's the outcomes that you get for them, and it's the experience that they have. It's how you made them feel along the way, right? And oftentimes the outcome is expected. Like they expect you to be able to do your job and to whatever, get them a result that they want. I expect that a surgeon can take a kid's appendix out and not screw that surgery up. But the customer experience is how you feel about the interaction that you had. And that is actually incredibly important to the likelihood of whether somebody is going to refer somebody your way. And that's a big part of the flywheel of these local service businesses, like a cash or hybrid-based physical therapy clinic, that in a lot of ways, your reputation and what you do is a huge driver of new volume to your clinic that allows you to not be so dependent on other forms of marketing, right? It is typically the best patient is coming your way. It's the easiest sale. They're the most bought in. They're the just best fit of people that you want to work with. And you want more of those people, right? So you want to have both. You want to have the outcome and you want to have the experience. So when we look at communication, it's a huge part of your customer experience. In fact, it's probably the biggest part. And when I think through this, like for me, there's multiple pieces, but the first one is what to expect. And as I think through my recent healthcare experience, I actually had a great, information, great communication on what to expect. What is this? What is it? What does the appendix do? What are the outcomes if we, don't go the surgical route versus the surgical route? Like, what are the implications, reoccurrence rates, all kinds of stuff. Fantastic. The doctors were great. They explained everything in detail. We also are, involved in the healthcare and medical community as well, and reached out to other people that we know that validated what they said as well, that are physicians and work at major hospitals as well. And so that was great. They did a great job of that, of what to expect, right? And usually that is, where most people do pretty well in their clinics as well is, hey, here's what you can expect. And then people feel like it makes sense to them. That's the easiest part, in my opinion. From there, you have to meet expectations. Okay. So when I say meet expectations, it's if you tell me that these things are going to happen, then I expect that that's the case. And if it's not the case, then please communicate to me why it has changed or what is different about it. And this is where, in our experience, we feel like the ball kind of dropped as far as what happened with the hospital. So for us, when we got to the hospital, to the actual surgical clinic. So we went from a urgent care clinic, not thinking this was much of anything, to a emergency room. There was a pediatric specific emergency room, to then being transferred to a surgical center because they didn't have the surgical team there to do that. All of that, there's a lot of obviously a communication breakdown that can occur. And at the very last place that we were at, the expectation was, okay, cool, we're gonna do this, antibiotics and then surgery, and then you're going to be out of here tonight, and you can go home. Assuming everything looks fine, we're going to discharge and go home. Well, all in all, we're 24 hours into this whole ordeal before we're able to come home, and the challenge for us was the breakdown in what was said was going to be done, and then the handoffs. And this was really hard in hospitals, and I have respect for this because my entire family works in hospitals. And when you have shift changes, you have communication breakdown that can occur. So the shift change between one nurse to another or one doctor to another, and then you're having to re-explain things, or they're not necessarily sure what you're talking about because somebody might have said one thing and then now you're hearing something else, and they might agree or disagree with that. This is where communication breakdown happens a lot. And this is actually really important for you in your own clinic as you go to scale past yourself, because when it's just you, there's no reason to have communication breakdown unless you just forget something that you said or you're not documenting things correctly. You have to realize there's not a whole lot of communication breakdown that can happen because you're not telling somebody something else or they're not talking to another person. But when you go and bring on other people within your organization, this could be your front desk, this could be people that are other staff members, staff clinicians within your space, that also they might say something different to you, or they may not be on the same page with everything that you're saying as far as your whatever plan of care is concerned, or maybe somebody is out sick or on vacation or whatever, and another staff member has to be able to see them. This is where we see communication breakdown, and it gets very frustrating to the provider or to the patient. Same thing can be said with businesses like ours. We work with clinicians and help them start and grow their clinics, right? So we're the business education MBA style sort of program for these clinicians that went to school to become clinicians and don't really know much about running businesses. And for us, there's a process where we start to work with people. There's an onboarding process. We have a whole teams doing that. And the communication side of it is shared internally with different people. We have an onboarding, coach that's taking them through the beginning portion of what we're doing. And then they get assigned a coach who's going to be their coach for the rest of the time that we're working with them. We have subject matter experts within, and all of these people can have slightly different perspectives and information potentially, or views on things. And if it's not centralized as best as possible, what happens is you have communication breakdown that feels like, there's not consistency within your organization. That is the key. The key is consistency. It is that everybody is kind of speaking the same language, and that can get really tough and very hard, and it requires effort on your part to make sure that everybody's on the same page. Our client success team within PT Biz, the amount of time that we spend just looking at people and where they're at different stages and the right touch points of what they're going to need to learn and who they need to get in contact with, and answering questions to make sure that we're on the same page, everything, it's extensive. We have a whole team that just does that, right? And that's because at scale, when you have multiple people that are all kind of working towards the same goal, there has to be constant communication and similarities in what you're saying. Otherwise, it feels like there's just a lack of communication. That feels unprofessional. And that's not necessarily what you want when you're about to have your kid go into a surgery, right? Even a very routine surgery like this, even still, you want to make sure that you feel like everybody's on the same page with what they're telling you. And if they're not, then that leads you to feel like there's a breakdown there somewhere and it's not as professional. So for you've got to think about the communication breakdown side of things, like what to expect. Okay, cool. Here's what you can expect. You have back pain. We expect that. We see this a lot. This is usually the trajectory we're going to see, but when you get in the office, we're going to do a thorough examination and make sure that, we have everything dialed in for what you need to do going forward. And our, whoever sees you, our doc will do that and make sure that you're very clear on what to do next. So cool. We've teed them up, expectation as far as what they can expect. From there, now we have to meet the expectation, right? So that means your doc has to do a thorough exam. That means they have to tell them, here's what we expect, prognosis, diagnosis, what's going on, activities that they can and can't do, everything that they would do in a thorough examination. They have to meet that expectation, and they have to hold the same communication that they had from the initial touch points, which may or may not be you. Maybe it's somebody that's on your team that's administrative or another staff member. And then now they have to be met and they have to be consistent across the board. And there has to be a communication handoff from one person to another, right? So if you're not having that, then you're going to have a breakdown, and then you're going to hear slightly different things. But that one person is now hearing multiple things from different people, and that starts to look unprofessional. The last thing, once you've met expectations, is that you have to let them know not just what's next, but follow up with them. So part of meeting expectations is also letting them know, okay, here's what you can expect. All right. You just had the surgery. We need him to do this over the next couple of days, avoid these activities, stay out of water for a couple of weeks. We don't want to get infection, like whatever, like these things that what we can expect. All right, great. But then it's follow-up. It's following up to make sure that they're clear on everything and they know what's going on. And as simple as that might seem, it makes a big difference. And it could be as simple as you just reaching out to your patient the day after you see them to make sure that they're good, to check on them. If, let's say you did some dry needling to them and you let them know, hey, I expect you're going to be sore from this for the next 24 to 48 hours. It's totally normal. So if you feel sore, nothing's wrong. That's a byproduct of this, of what we're doing. But if you reach out to them, you send them an email, a text message, hey, so-and-so, just checking in on you, want to see how you're feeling. Totally expect that your quad's feeling pretty sore. Stairs probably aren't your best friend right now, whatever you want to say that lightens the mood. And then, let us know if you have any questions or concerns about anything. We look forward to seeing you on this day, and let them know when the next visit is, which they should already know, but you're just reiterating that fact. And in our scenario, no one has reached out to us at all. Like, we feel totally comfortable with this because we're obviously in the medical field. This isn't that abnormal for us to manage post-operative stuff. But if this was somebody who was, just they're an accountant or, whatever, they're a teacher and this is their kid, they're probably getting very nervous. They're probably starting to wonder, like, is this normal? Does this look right? Does this scar look right? Like, I don't really know. What is this? What are signs of infection? These things, like, they're probably searching for these things and it's stressing them out versus having somebody follow up with them and be able to actually touch base with them on expectations, what they should be seeing, what's normal, what's not, and what they should do if something is abnormal, right? So you have got to think about these things as if you are in the position of the patient. And what's interesting for me is as I am now, like, on the other side of that, it's very obvious to me that there are certain breakdowns in the customer experience and frankly just communication in general that are difficult to manage at scale, no doubt. But if managed well, there is a massive difference between my interest in wanting to shout them out as a place, you got to go here. I had such a great experience with this, and this versus, yes, I care that the operation's done correctly. That's great. No adverse outcomes after the fact. That's the most important thing. And they're checking the box on that as far as what everything looks like. And if you help somebody get their shoulder pain resolved and back to swimming, you're checking the box on that. But if you don't have good communication and the customer experience isn't there, the likelihood of them actually telling their friends and family about your clinic and you and what you're doing with people goes down a lot, because you got to keep in mind, they get 50% of the credit for a good referral and 100% of the blame for a bad one. So if they have to make excuses for your business, if they say, hey, you got to go see X, Y, and Z PT company, they got my back, better, and I was able to play golf again, whatever it is they're interested in. But just so you know, they kind of drop the ball on communication. They're kind of hard to get in touch with. They kind of don't get back to you that fast. They kind of forget to send stuff sometimes, but it's okay because they're really good at their job. If someone has to apologize for you, they're not going to do that. I mean, unless it's they really like you, but they're unlikely to do that because when someone refers somebody, it's not just about the outcome. It's also about the place that you're going, the whole experience. And there's a status associated with somebody who's a trusted referrer of people. And you cannot buy that. And you lose it quickly. If you're if you're the person that's telling everybody about this place they have to go, and every time that happens, someone is underwhelmed by your recommendation, they're not going to trust your recommendation anymore. And people don't want to lose their status. Status is a hard thing to gain. You can't buy it. You have to earn it, and you can lose it. So they will safeguard their status as a reputable person. And if you put them on the line with that in terms of they have to apologize for things, they're probably not going to do it. So don't be a business that people have to make excuses for why they need to work with you. Be a business that takes away the excuses and creates an environment that people can't help but recommend folks to work with you because you solve a problem and you do so in a way that is so professional and consistent that it is an anomaly compared to anywhere else. And you're going to make them look great and you're going to help their friend get a great outcome. that is what you have to think about from a communication standpoint. So what can you do to improve communication? Number one, this should be a part of your weekly meeting. So if you're not meeting on a weekly basis to talk about your clients, the patients that you're actively working with, where people are at, new people along their treatment cycle, people that are maybe moving into continuity programs, maybe they're starting to do training with you, maybe they're starting to do recurring visits, whatever it is, but to get on the same page about where people are at, especially in the early stages of somebody, that is starting their initial evaluation with you, their first couple visits, this is where we can really make or break this client experience, right? Because that's where there's the most unknown. They're not that familiar with you. They're not sure how to engage with you. They don't know the whole process. So you need to be meeting on a weekly basis, and you can make this part of your actual, your office weekly meeting. So let's say you're doing every Monday you meet for 2 hours and you talk through your KPIs and your core values and you get your team on the same page. This is a big part of it. And it's, well, let's talk about Sarah. Sarah had her first visit on Thursday. Where's she at? Okay, cool. Hey, front desk, has she been reached out to? Does she have super bells? Yep. Okay, cool. We've got everything as far as communication goes. Let's talk about Brian. Where's Brian at with this? So-and-so is, whatever, requesting a refund. Where are we at with this as far as communication? Okay, has the provider reached out to them? You want to make sure everybody's on the same page with things that you're doing proactively and in some cases even reactively to make sure that everybody's communicating in the most effective way. I will say one big area for this that we also see breakdown at scale is internal communication channels. So how are you sharing this information? Where is that going? And this is where I think big hospitals really have a challenge, right? Because when I'm walking around this emergency department and the surgical center, there's so many nurses and doctors and techs and admins, they're all over the place, right? And it's a big organization. It's very hard to communicate effectively at scale and to share that. Now we have these internal technology platforms where, you can communicate with your team, but being able to do that in a way where you're actually keeping your team on the same page is really important. One thing that is an application that we use within PT Biz, many clinics use this just for internal communication, not for patient data and stuff like that, but just to make sure that people are on the same page with what's going on within the company is Slack. And I think Slack is fantastic. It keeps people out of their inbox. It keeps people off text message. When I see companies that are if a clinic is running off of a group text or just email, and they're not using something like a Slack, which there's plenty of other options, but this is just what we use internally to keep their communication similar and in one place. And you can compartmentalize conversations. You can have channels just for specific things, whatever that is you want to break it up into. Just getting your staff to actually use this one communication channel specifically for internal communication is a game changer. It's huge. I resisted the shit out of it, by the way. I didn't want to use another application within our company. And as soon as we got everybody on the same page with that, it made such a big difference because you're not losing stuff in an inbox. If you're pinging somebody in an inbox and they have all these patient emails and they have all these other things that are coming their way, it's easy to lose messages or to sort of get distracted by things. This is one place where you can clean up communication. It can make a really, really big difference, especially if you're trying to clean up an onboarding process and make sure people's initial client experiences with you, the first couple weeks they work with you, are just outstanding, because that's when they're most likely to actually refer somebody your way. Oftentimes people think it's the end when they've finished their plan of care or whatever. It's not. It's early on, they've had a great experience. They're starting to feel much better. They're hitting these pain relief milestones. They're getting back to certain things that they've been avoiding and they feel much better. And then, if you match that up with they've had this amazing experience and they love how you've treated them, they're going to tell everybody about you. And that is where you've got to really focus in particular on making sure everybody has the outcomes that they want and the experience that they deserve, frankly, within your clinic. And the people that do this right, I'll tell you this straight up, we work with hundreds of clinics. The clinics that do a great job of this and they focus on this a lot, they have to spend far less on marketing. They have a far easier time filling new patient schedules because they're getting all these inbound referrals over and over and over again. And they just frankly have the best brand because they're paying attention to this and they have great brand reputation in their community. And that's a very hard thing to develop. It's one of those things that it's also very easy to lose. I have a friend who works a lot in the special operations community, especially with the Navy. And one of the things he says is, trust is earned in drops and it's lost in buckets, right? Think of your reputation the same way. Your reputation is earned in drops. You have to earn it slowly but it's lost really fast. You make one mistake, you do one thing incorrectly with somebody, you skip over something because you don't think it matters that much, and you can lose all that reputation, positive reputation gain that you've had very quickly in comparison to gaining it is much slower. So take that, and be very aware of it. Your reputation, you only get one. It goes everywhere with you. So you've got to safeguard your reputation about being somebody that does what they say they're going to do, that treats people the right way and gets the outcomes that they deserve. So if you do these things, your clinic will have a mass, increase in terms of referrals, and you'll have a much easier time getting the new patients you need every single month to continue to grow your practice. So in summary, customer experience, there's 3 big things you got to focus on. So number 1, you've got to make sure that you are focused on what to expect. So once you do what to expect, right, then you have to do that thing. You actually have to meet the expectations. So what to expect, number 1, meet the expectations, number 2, and then what is next, and make sure you're communicating that with them and following up with them to make sure that they're aware of what to expect, because they don't know. They don't know the information we take it for granted. And if you do these 3 things, you're going to see a massive improvement in your customer experience and a corresponding increase in referrals because of it. So thanks for listening. As always, thanks for watching on the YouTube channel. If you're over there, drop a comment. We'd love to hear what you have to say. It's one of the reasons why we wanted to move some of our content over there so that we could actually engage back and forth and not necessarily just have, you listen to me and never be able to say anything back. So if you're interested, head over there, leave us a comment. We'd love to hear from you. And as always, thanks so much for listening and watching, and we'll see you next week.